Welcome everybody again to Shocked Dougface and the show. This is RT Talk. This is our weekly show about Rooster Teeth, where we cover all the latest kind of news and things that are going on with the company. I am Michael Cool, and who are you, you bearded motherfucker?
I am Doug Kirkwood.
Good job. Thanks, Doug. Well,
Nailed it.
You did well. You can nap it for the rest of the episode if you want to.
I would love a nap.
I assume that's what you'll do as soon as we're done. But before Doug takes a nap, we're going to talk about a few things that have happened this week. Maybe the most newsworthy is that Rooster Teeth hired a couple of new executives to, I don't know, I guess help out. I don't know if they're like producers and stuff. So it's beefing up their team for scripted and unscripted content. There was something that we actually missed a couple of weeks ago that I found while looking up this executive story. And it's a partnership with Webtoon, so we'll talk about that a little bit. We'll talk about the change to the RTTV chat because they reopened the chat. I don't know if you remember a couple weeks ago, we talked about how they were closing it down and restricting it. And then there's the last thing is it's sort of just a mention, but it's RWBY's taking a mid-season break, and there's sort of just a little more information on that. So we can actually get into the first one. And for a while we were doing this, I was bringing my laptop in, and I keep forgetting to do that. So you're going to hear a lot of my mouse clicking, and I apologize for that. But yeah, Rooster Teeth brought in two new executives. They are Wayne Sampson, who they say they recruited for unscripted TV development and production. Or I guess it says unscripted TV development and production veteran Wayne Sampson, and most recently at NBC Universal as head of unscripted content. And then they also brought in scripted comedy exec Emily Hughes, previously with Lorne Michaels Broadway Video, joins the company as manager of scripted content. This is a Variety article, by the way, that I'm looking at. And if you're watching the video of this, which you can do at YouTube, it'll be above our heads, as for parts of this anyway.
The link?
No, it'll be. I've actually been putting in.
Well, I know the header.
Yeah, well, yeah, but I've been putting screenshots and stuff up there, so that way people can see like what we're talking about and everything. So I'm not gonna put every single thing I read in there, but I'll at least put this paragraph in, or whatever I decide to do in editing. But yeah, both of them are. Both of those are pretty legit credentials. Like I said, Wayne Sampson is most recently at NBC Universal. Obviously, NBC is one of the oldest broadcasting institutions that we have in the U.S.
He's worked on what I remember.
It's
the list of what he's worked on is pretty substantial.
It goes back many years. And then her working. I don't know. I've never heard of Lorne Michaels Broadway Video, but also I'm not a big play Broadway guy, so that doesn't really surprise me. But Lorne Michaels is, if anyone doesn't know, Lorne Michaels is the person who created basically and has been running Saturday Night Live for 800 years. So he is a vampire, but he's very good at his job. He's also responsible for for Conan O'Brien having a job and being like us knowing him pretty much, because I know if you listened, we've talked about Conan a lot on our podcast.
Yeah, we have extensively.
But if you know his origin story, it was basically Lorne Michaels. I think Lorne Michaels recommended him, I believe, or talked him into it or something. I think he was put in charge of finding a new host, and someone recommended Conan to him, or he recommended Conan because Conan worked on SNL and everything. But still, Lorne Michaels is a powerhouse of TV production and a legend in terms of, I guess, just the TV history. So I think anything he touches is something that's a pretty prestigious kind of thing. But that's as Doug was saying, they're both, or him specifically, he has a long kind of list of big shows that maybe some of us have heard of. I know I think I've heard of everything on his that he's worked on. So it says that he previously was the VP of Programming and Development for NBCU's, I guess NBC Universal's USA Network and Sci-Fi. If you've listened out in the grapes, you'll have heard my love for sci-fi movies on a previous episode.
Right.
Yeah, it joins Rooster Teeth Studios over 20 years of TV development, and shows for USA Sci-Fi, Discovery, and Spike TV. Obviously, Spike TV is, I think it's Paramount Network now, but that goes back quite many years. Long. I mean, they say 20 years, but it shows you just that kind of puts it in a context, saying Spike TV for me. And then it says spanning a range of sports, reality, game show, competition, interview, and talk show genres. The shows that he worked on were The Biggest Loser, which that was a huge show back in, I would say, I don't know, early 2000s, mid 2000s.
Early 2000s, and you couldn't escape it. Then there was Celebrity Biggest Loser, and
it was the same thing as what was the Ultimate Home or Extreme Home Makeover? Like, I feel like those both were going at the same time. I don't know if you seem like you don't remember that show.
It's just a house flipping show that I didn't watch.
Oh, I didn't watch either one of them, but I just like, I feel like when I hear Biggest Loser, I think of both those shows because they were both shows that were huge that were talked about.
Ty Pennington's show?
Yeah. Move that bus.
Move that. Yeah.
And they would have like a 6-story mansion house for this family that's like this small family, and they're just blown away, and they take them through and show them everything they did. It's a show I'd probably love now, by the way. I'd probably cry every episode if I watched it now. So I'd look on Hulu.
The molding.
Oh, the ground molding. They pre-painted it. Oh, they brought out the hardwood floors. Jesus Christ. Open concept. So Biggest Loser, Ultimate Fighter, which was like has a huge hand in why the UFC is what it is today.
Matt Hughes, right? He came up through the Ultimate Fighter. Was that Matt Hughes?
No. The first one was, Forrest Griffin and Stephen Bonner. They were the first two, and they both got contracts at the end. But that was like peak reality TV, like era.
Kimbo Slice.
He was on it eventually, yes. But yeah, that was like peak reality TV, and that's what that show really. It was an enormous boost for the UFC, and probably why it's still around today. I mean, when you hear stories about it, because it's like I watch I'm like a casual MMA fan, but it's like when you hear the stories, it basically says like the Ultimate Fighter was like it's like what made them even make money for. So that was a huge part of their history. And sticking along with that.
I say, or if you play the UFC games, the beginning of your career is always in the Ultimate Fighter.
Oh, yeah, they like to throw it in there a lot. Even though now they're on season like 38, and it's like there's fighters that come up through, and then they're like fighting for the belt, and this is a guy that came up through the Ultimate Fighter, and all this stuff. I was like, I had no idea.
I don't know if it's on anymore. Still a thing. I had no idea.
I think it's been gone for a couple years. I don't know. It was not that long ago that they actually like canceled it or were postponing or like trying to rework it or something. But it's within like I'd say like the last 2 or 3 years that decision was made, so it's still pretty recent. But sticking with the Ultimate Fighter, he was a producer on the sci-fi show Joe Rogan Questions Everything, staying in the same realm of UFC. I think I kind of remember the show or I didn't know it was USA, but the show Straight Up Steve Austin. Like I remember Steve Austin having a show, but I never saw it or anything.
Like Stone Cold.
Yeah. That's what I'm assuming it is, because I remember Stone Cold Steve Austin having one. So
Straight Up Steve Austin.
Yeah. Touted as the year's most watched new unscripted series for male viewers and social interactive game. Oh, that's comma. Sorry, that's the next part.
It's on Hulu.
Oh, there you go. You can watch all of Straight Up Steve Austin. The year's most watched new unscripted series for male viewers. And then social interactive game show Opposite Worlds. That's one I don't know. But then when you go back to Spike TV, it's like all of their biggest shows were like he developed them, so he had a big part of. So 1,000 Ways to Die, that show was on forever for Spike TV.
Watched a lot of that.
It was. I don't think there was ever a day where an episode of that was not on. It was on all of the time. Deadliest Warrior, another one that I don't know if it wasn't on as much as 1,000 Ways to Die, but it was on a lot.
It did get its own video game.
It did. Not great, but it did get one.
Oh, did you play it?
No, but I just remember it getting like all the reviews and anything I ever saw for it was always very negative. I mean, it has more video games than I do, but still, I heard it was not great. But still, that was a show I remember watching all the time. They would say like, who would win between knights and samurais, and then they would go through historical context, and then they do different tests for like the weapons they use or techniques, and then they would have some scripted battle at the end where they'd face off to decide who would win. So that was a big show for Spike TV back in the day. Mansers, I don't remember. I remember the name, but I don't think I ever saw that show.
I'm sure we watched it at one time.
I probably have seen it. I just don't remember it at all. And then Pros versus Joes, I remember because that's like an old school kind of. I mean, not old school, but it's a concept that comes up a lot where they would take like an average, just some guy, and then they would put him up against like a wide receiver for the Dallas Cowboys, and then it's like, and they would try to face off in some sort of competition.
Right, I do remember that. Like, all right, run this pattern. How many can you catch versus this guy who does it every day?
Or so, yeah. There was a bunch of different competitions because it had more of an angle to it. I think he had to catch like a lesser amount. There was some slant because obviously the professional football players going to do better in a straight up competition. So there was some sort of thing to it. But that was one that I think it was on Fox at one point too, or there was like a special for it. But that's one that concept has popped up a lot. But I do remember that back on Spike TV. But then for Discovery Channel, he was program development head for Airplane Repo and Dual Survivor. There's 100 Survivor shows that are on Discovery Channel, so I don't know which one Dual Survivor is. And Airplane Repo, I'm assuming, is just like the other Repo shows that are around at the same time. Big, reality TV angle of the repossession, or like there was I think it was just called Repo or something that was on True TV, or which used to be Court TV. You have no okay.
I don't know. I didn't have cable for. I mean, I haven't had cable in so long. I have no idea what's on TV.
Well, it's definitely not on anymore, but I think it was just called Repo. It was on True TV, and it was the most scripted, like, in quotes, reality show of this team of repo people that went to repossess vehicles, and they would always get in, like, wacky scenarios. We're, like, getting... I think the one lady gets thrown out of a parking garage, and then she shows up and stops the car. It's really ridiculous. I think Repo. I don't know if it is just called Repo. It has a different name, but I'm sure wouldn't be hard to find if you want to look up the clips of it.
Was it always in the same city, or was it different cities for every situation?
No, I think it was the same people. Like it was they were like a cast and crew of people that they would go out or that they would follow. But that's his. That's the one that they list in this Variety article for the stuff that he's worked on is just an example of some of the stuff he did. The list of things that they list for her, I think the biggest thing right now anyway is that AP Bio show. I'm not sure how well it's doing, but it's one of those shows that I've heard a lot about. Yeah,
I mean, it's big, and now it's only on Peacock.
Oh, I didn't even know that. I remember it was when it got like announced and it was getting hyped up because what's his name?
And Patton Oswalt.
Yeah. So as I know that was a show. I'm not, like I said, I don't know how well it was doing, but still, I would say it's like a premier NBC production. So the fact that she worked on that is a pretty good sign. The other two, I'm not sure what that is, or Miracle Workers. I never heard of those. Upcoming shows: Keenan and MacGruber for Peacock. MacGruber. And then they kind of go through some of our other that she worked. Or she started her career at CAA in the TV Lit and Corporate Communications Department. So both people with obviously a lot of experience. Both people with high level. What's the word they always use for like network TV? I can't remember right now. There's always a term that people use for or traditional media. That's what it is. People with a lot of traditional media experience.
I don't think I've ever heard that, but I don't pay attention.
It's true. You just sip on some beers and you just lay under your weighted blanket all day and get smothered by it. That's the life that you lead. But yeah, both people that come in with a lot of experience. It remains to be seen what exactly they'll be doing at Rooster Teeth. Like they announce, like they say, like what their position is, but I don't know if maybe this is something that's going to be like leading into bigger productions for them, because it seems like two really, really experienced and really like big hitters to bring in for a company that makes, stuff like Play Pals. And, it's like, obviously there's the studio side where they're making like the Transformers thing for Netflix, and they're making, like RWBY and their big productions, but still, it's like, it's obviously these are two people that are going to be working on that side of it. But, I don't know if maybe this means something bigger is kind of that they're working on, or if they maybe have more projects. Because, I don't think it's related to it, but our other story, what we were talking about, was that Webtoon, and how they partnered with Webtoon to work on a show for, I don't know if it's for Crunchyroll, but Webtoon is like they have like digital comics online, and a couple of their shows have been made into anime on Crunchyroll, which Crunchyroll's owned for now by Warner Media, but it's like getting sold to Sony, I think. So it's like everything's kind of like shuffling around. But
right. Yes, I never heard of Webtoon.
I haven't either, but I guess they have like a couple shows that, and a few of them that are I guess somewhat popular, because that's and like the articles and stuff, that's what they were like pointing out that I can't remember. There was two that they were listed at the top, but I can't remember what they were. They both had God in it, but still, it's like I don't think it has anything to do with them teaming up with Webtoon, but maybe this spells something kind of bigger coming down the line, or like plans that they have to really kind of expand everything. I have to assume that coronavirus really put a damper on any kind of long-term plans that they wanted to do, or I shouldn't say that, like, that they wanted to do, because that makes it sound like they're not going to do it. But I feel like having to shut everything down and everyone working from home probably delayed things. Is probably a better way to put it.
Yeah.
Because, it's a quick mention, but it's just kind of leads right into it anyway. But that's sort of the RWBY story. Because for RWBY, that they always take a mid-season break for the volumes, and apparently this year it's going to be longer than it usually is. So it's following the release of Volume 8, Chapter 7 on December 19th, which today we're recording this on December 4th, so it's still like 2 episodes away. That'll be the last one until the mid-season, or for the mid-season break, and then it'll pick back up for Chapter 8 on February 6th. So it's a pretty significant, like 2-month or almost 2-month, kind of like month and a half-ish break. But that's what the reason why is that they always take the break, but working remotely obviously has a lot more challenges, and it's not the same as everyone being together with their actual, the workflow of, as we know, doing this podcast. It's like if we were in the same room doing it like we used to do it, it's as easy as just handing over the file and everything else. Now it takes there's a certain amount of time for like you to send it to me, that whole thing. So it's
me to do one thing and you to do 100 things.
Yes, which is why I'll never pay you for anything. But I imagine when you're talking about a show where you're like they're animating, you're talking about a lot more that goes into individual files and resources that they're using. So
yeah, because they're probably say they're sketching something. They're like, hey, what is this? Is this cool? What do you think?
Yeah,
send me the file.
Yeah, proofing it, or if I'm sure, like most, like if you ever watch or if you read through the credits, I should say, of any movie or anything, it's like there's people who are just in like charge of shadows, and then there's this group that's in charge of textures, and like I'm sure it's like, okay, well, we did this, we're gonna send it to color or whatever. It's like they're probably is all broken down into different teams that do it, so it just adds a much bigger workflow. And going back to the not the layoffs, the animator like controversy back over a year ago now, where like they were all the forced overtime and all that kind of stuff. I think this is something that everyone is still around in the Rooster Teeth fan base that they should be understanding of, like, or I should say the RWBY fan base, because if you were that upset about upset about the conditions they were working in, you should be understanding in these situations. Like, right. I feel like that's not a big ask to say. Rightfully, you came at them and said this is shitty. They need to be taken care of. They've made changes. They've corrected it. They've addressed it. The least you can do is be understanding for delays that are longer than what it is. Now, I don't know. I didn't read through any of the comments or anything, but this was a post on the website, and obviously they have their own comment section. But you can find. I just looked up, or I think I went to the RWBY Twitter actually, and there was a link to it. But I'm sure if you looked up like RWBY update or something, you could read the full thing. It's a short read, but that's basically the gist of what the message is that it's because of that kind of stuff. But kind of switching back to the original subject of the executives, sort of putting our rails back online here, or back in line. I'm sure like whatever plans they have, much like RWBY and getting delayed like this, there was probably a lot of stuff that was held back or hampered by the fact that everything's shut down, and it's like you go from making all these plans and like working these things out to now we have to figure out how to transition to working everyone from or having everyone work from home and how that's going to work and like refining that and all that kind of stuff. So I don't know. I'm excited to see like what this means for them. I mean, for some reason, even though I know we've said this before and we've talked about it, but this really cements to me what we have talked about in the past of how Rooster Teeth is now. It basically is like NBC, and not in terms of stature or brand like recognition or anything like that, but that Rooster Teeth for a long time, for most of the time I've been a fan, has been about the people, and the title that they went by was kind of irrelevant. So Achievement Hunter could have been anybody at Rooster Teeth. A Rooster Teeth podcast could have been anybody from Achievement Hunter or any other thing they do. And now it's got to the point where it's Rooster Teeth is the brand, and then the people behind the scenes you don't really know, and there's all the reorganizing and shuffling, and they're bringing in other people, and it's like it is just sort of its own entity now, as opposed to just the people that are there. And
we would know exactly what was happening because it'd be talked about somewhere on a Rooster Teeth podcast or like a video. Like, oh, here's so-and-so doing this.
Well, yeah, and there's only like 12 of them, so it's pretty easy to keep everyone in line.
Right.
But it's the same. It's like I said, it's kind of the same thing as where NBC is like, who is in charge of NBC? It's going to affect programming and everything, but it's not really going to change how you look at NBC. If, say, 6 years ago or whatever, when it like all the original people were there, the RT podcast is, it's 6 years ago. I don't even know what episodes they'd be on, but like, it's still like the small group. And if Bernie decided to leave at that point, it would be massive. Or if Matt decided to leave at that point, it's like that would be like such a huge thing. But now we're to the point where like I think his name is Jordan Levin, who is the like CEO at Rooster Teeth now.
It's in that article of them hiring the two executives.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's probably towards the bottom, I would imagine, because it's usually where they kind of like wrap everything up.
So if Rooster Teeth has a page program, are we going to sign up?
Yes. I don't know if every single entity gets a page program, but yeah, we can do that.
Well, based off 30 Rock, we can be like Kenneth.
Yeah. Well, actually, shit, what was I just listening to? There was weird Conan. Because Sona was on a podcast and I was listening to, and she started as an NBC page.
Oh, did she?
Yeah, she was a page for a while, and then like I'm not gonna get the whole story, but that's like she actually was a page, and I was like, oh, look, that's actually the first person that I can think of that was a page, and like Kenneth on 30 Rock, and then was trying to and then obviously became Conan's assistant later on, but yeah, it is Jordan Levin, or I guess he's the general manager. So I don't know what all the different things are, but that's kind of my point. Is like if he stepped down, it's not the same as it was a couple years ago. So it's like this is now much more of a company than it was before in the previous years, and I think we even talked about that on like one of our earliest episodes, and like how that's could be something that would happen or whatever. Like once people started to leave,
right?
But Yeah, I think for some reason this story in particular, even though we've talked about it and it's been coming for a long time, and this is not the first story that makes that true. I really feel it with this. Like, oh, we had these new producers and stuff, and they'll get brought in, and then you probably won't really hear much about them until like either something comes out or if they then move on or whatever. So it's
until they're like, hey, these guys or one of these guys partnered us with so and now we have this show on TV.
Yeah.
Or something like that.
Something like that. Or knowing that since we started this podcast, all the bad stuff has happened in the history pretty much of Rooster Teeth. They'll kill somebody, and then that's what we'll hear about. Is murder will happen, and it'll be at the fault of one of their hands. So, yeah. But the last thing we had to kind of talk about is that they open up the chat for RTTV, which I don't remember fully the story from when they closed it down before. I know it was because of harassment and everything else, but I don't remember what they limited it to or anything because
I thought it was first members only.
That's what I thought, but then the way that they yeah, hold on, I was just reading the tweets that people had, but that's what, like, I thought it was first members only, but then the tweet they put out, it says starting today RTTV chat will be open to free and first accounts. And I was like, well, how were people in the chat before? They had to have been first accounts.
Right. But I think they got rid of the free portion. It was only first members could be in the chats.
I guess maybe it's just the wording that threw me off, because it's the way I read that made it sound like, oh, it's going to be open to free, like we're opening it now to free and first accounts. Like It seems weird. Like that's how I was like reading it basically.
No, because I mean, I would assume that if you have a first membership, you are at least a Rooster Teeth fan in some aspect. You're not going to harass other people or the personalities on screen. Whereas a free account will come in and be like, "Hey, fuck you, you're a piece of shit."
Well, yeah, it could be anybody, and I think that's what we talked about when they did like reduce or limit who could be commenting and stuff during the live streams. Because I'm pretty sure that's what or like almost exactly what we were saying, is that it could be anybody. It could be anyone who just has a grudge against them, or just straight up trolls. It could be anybody that steps in. But yeah, says that, it's starting today, first and free accounts, or whatever. But only during live streams when we're fully staffed with mods. Thanks to the launch of our new moderation tools, we're ready for everyone to watch and have fun together again during these challenging times. And then they followed up with, we still have a zero tolerance for hate or harassment of any kind per our code of conduct, and will not stand for mistreatment of our creators or community members. We thank those who have continued to stand up to show positivity and support for everyone. So, they are... Yeah, someone just said Godspeed to the mods. But yeah, so they're opening it back up. I'm not sure what the motivation was for them to open back up, or like what made them want to include the free ones again. I mean, I'm assuming they don't. It was never a long-term plan to have it completely shut down and limited so narrowly. But I don't know if there was something that happened that they wanted to do that or what. But see kind of what happens. I mean, obviously harassment has been harassment really, if anyone's known online, harassment's a problem for them all basically. Like, I don't know of anyone that's...
It's like 30% of the internet.
Well, no, I'm saying like, I've never heard of someone who has a following or of any kind who isn't getting harassed on some level. Like, it seems like no matter who you are, if people know who you are, a group is going to come after you. Whoever it is, you're going to get shit from somebody. So it's like, there's obviously there is no solution to just make hate go away in that way. So I don't know if maybe we'll see it get reduced again if things get bad or what, but hopefully it's like they said, it'll be, once they're staffed with mods, they'll develop tools and ways to deal with the harassment that they get. Cause yeah, I mean, it's people like, I understand there's people that have criticisms of stuff. There's some people that are just assholes. This does not apply to them. When they're just straight up just saying hurtful things, like if people who just go into a chat and will just type like the N-word at Fiona, it's like, there's nothing redeemable about that. Just go away. But I understand there's people that just say they say things that they feel like are criticisms, but don't realize that how they're saying it or how they're wording it or whatever is actually coming across as really dicky. Because what you always see is people saying like, well, they say like they're really like they want criticisms or constructive criticisms. When I said this, I just got blocked, or like those type of things pop up on the subreddit every now and then. I haven't seen them in a while. They probably are actually getting moderated, honestly, but I used to see those stories on the subreddit quite a few times. But then, like, when you'd see what they posted, like, well, no wonder you got blocked, because what you said it in such a shitty way. Like, you can say something to anybody, really. It's just about how you frame it. Like, and again, this does not apply to. I want to say I want to call Fiona the N-word, so let me frame it properly. I'm not saying that, but like I'm talking in terms of criticism, or like if I want to have a difficult conversation with you. It's like there's a way you could say it that'll go across well, and a way you'll say it that'll go across terribly. It's not going to go well, and it really comes down to how they receive it. But if you do your part on your end, then that's not your fault. But there's so many people that are just I choked. I got too emotional. I got too passionate. But there's a lot of people who want to say things and frame it in such like a terrible way that it's like, well, no one's ever going to hear what you're saying. Like, saying it in this way makes it impossible for whoever's listening to it or reading it or whatever to actually take in that information. Like, it's just, you're framing it as an insult, basically. So of course it's not going to come through. So if you have some real criticisms of what they do, just try to keep that in mind. If that's how you want to express it, no one's really get like, I don't know. Most people I don't think even really care to hear about your criticisms for the most part, but sometimes they are, they're real. Like for instance, talking about the animator situation, that whole thing. There's real criticisms that people could have brought forward saying like, I don't agree with this. Now, if they left a comment on a live stream or something during that time, which I don't even know how big their live streaming was at that moment, but still, they left a comment on anything and said like, I'm really bothered by this. I do think I think this is a real problem. Like, these are people that need to be taken care of. If you just go through it and list out your points and how you feel on something, that's much more respectable. People will listen to that. It's not so aggressive. If you just go, you fucking turds, I knew that you were like this from the beginning. How could you do this? Give them more money, you pieces of shit. Like, completely, totally very different. Not going to be taken the same way at all. So it's I understand that people like, because that's the other thing too. Like, I try to keep in mind, I do try to give a lot of people the benefit of the doubt, and I'm sure there's a lot of people who probably don't deserve it, especially in the eyes of, a whole giant group of people. But I just sit from a position where like, I don't know this person, so I don't know if this could be like a 13-year-old kid who just doesn't have that life experience or doesn't know these things yet.
Right.
And maybe that's wrong. Maybe they're 38. I don't know. But either way, I still try to give them the benefit of the doubt until at least I see something that can point me in one way or the other. And then you go, okay, yeah, you have had plenty of time to figure this out. You're older than me. You should know not to do that. But it's just like, I just try to think about it in that context. Like, these just might be maybe someone that's really young and just doesn't realize how shitty the things they're saying are. And so I know there's going to be some people that still will be upset that they'll be getting banned from the chat and everything else, but just try to keep that in mind. If you're just being an asshole, then you deserve to be banned. If you think you're saying something productive or helpful, even if it is negative, just think about how you're framing it and how you're saying it and delivering that message. Because the same way you don't want someone to be shitty and an asshole to you, they don't want you to be an asshole to them. They're just trying to entertain people and have fun, and this is their job. So just imagine you're at work and someone comes up to you and just tells you you're a turd. And I don't know why I'm latching on to turd so much in this one, but I feel like it needs to come back.
Keep it PG.
No, I feel like it's aggressive. It has a too hard, like, just hitting sound, turd. That T sound really hits. So I feel like it's impactful. It's forgotten about unless you're it's still in third grade. But I don't know. For some reason I latched onto it in this episode. But yeah, we'll see what happens. Obviously, the hate will continue. it is what it is. But I will see if this is something that they'll keep open and free for everybody, or if they'll eventually go back to making it more like first exclusive or whatever. But that's all we have, Doug.
That's it.
That's our subjects. Try to keep this one shorter and sweeter, and we went from having almost nothing to talk about like an hour ago to we had a lot to talk about very suddenly. So trying to keep them more condensed. Hopefully you enjoy this episode. As I try to remind everybody all the time, we have our other podcast called Out in the Grapes that is it comes out every Wednesday on the same RSS feed as this podcast. So if you follow this or subscribe to this podcast, whatever, it'll pop up on there. It's just Doug and I going on and on about like whatever is happening in our lives. We're going to start changing up a little bit how we do it, not in terms of like we're still going to talk about the same things, but I want to start interjecting more like current event sort of things so that we have a kind of broader list of things we talk about more.
That's what Mike says, but I don't believe him.
I already have a couple things jotted down. So
throw it away.
I'm not going to because I'm working, Doug. I'm trying to work hard on this. But yeah, we'll be trying to just have something more current on the episode and more with broader appeal than a story of you beating me as a fourth grader or something. Like something that other people are aware of at least. But yeah, there's that. And then if you're listening to this podcast, these episodes are on YouTube. We have it in the description. And if you're watching this podcast, then you can listen to it on pretty much anything. I mean, I'm sure there's some different podcast hosting things that are out there that I'm not aware of, but at least the big hitters, like the ones you'd expect podcasts to be on, we're on all those.
Right.
So
you can find us. Just look it up.
Yeah. Still working on getting more easily recognizable, because when you search for the podcast on YouTube, it takes a little bit of digging to find it. So hopefully as we release episodes, they'll be more discoverable. So that's it. So thank you for listening, everybody. Doug, thank you for being here and day drinking. Technically it's night because the sun goes down. The sun goes down like 1 p.m., but it's 6 in the afternoon. Yeah, I didn't know you were off work. I didn't know that. I wasn't aware.
I actually might have to punch out today, so we'll find out.
Tune in next week to find out if Doug was fired. Okay. Goodbye, everybody.
Goodbye.
Oh, both wave. Wave, Doug.
Oh, sorry.
There we go. That's our new thing.
You're right, favor.
Hang 10. More UFC references.